Welcome to the Leadership Labs with DeepRec.ai, a podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of deep tech entrepreneurship, company founders and venture capitalists. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly, and I'm thrilled to have you join us in this exciting journey. In each episode, we explore the minds behind groundbreaking technologies, the visionaries who dare to push the boundaries of innovation, and the investors who fuel the growth of tomorrow's game changers. I'm joined with Ramakant today. Ramakant, great to finally have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, inviting me to talk.
Good. Today's guest, for those who don't know him, is Ramakant Agrawal. He is a co-founder and manager at KI Reply in Germany. Today we'll hear a lot about Ramakant, how he looks a lot into his personal growth, his skills growth, mentors coaching, how he shaped himself to be an entrepreneur really from a young age. And then talk a little bit about KI Reply. But before we do that, Ramakant, why don't you tell us a little bit about the man behind the mask? Tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, look, you've come from India, you've relocated. What was home life like in India before coming over? Talk to me.
Yeah, so definitely. I have, let's say, 13 to 14 years of experience in terms of industry experience in IT. Prior to that, I come from a business family. I studied in a very small town. Then I wanted to have a better education, so I moved to some nearby city, studied there, let's say, in one of the best schools. Luckily, my father could afford it. And then I moved, I wrote one of the best engineering exams in India, and I got a good position in, so we have two tiers of universities, IITs and NITs. I could get into an NIT, luckily there as well, I would say. And I had very good education there. After that, I worked for companies like TCS, Samsung. I always wanted to, let's say, study abroad to get so to increase my vision to understand. So this is what people usually say, that when you are in a well, you know only, or if you're a frog in the well, then you know only your area and you think you're the king there. But when you go out, you know the real world. So this was something important for me. So I came here for my master's in Germany. And if I would be really honest, the free education was the biggest motivation here.
We get
Then
that a lot in Ireland too, don't worry.
yeah, and I think I did well here. And I started with a company called Data Reply. There I worked, I started creating a lot of big data applications, real-time applications. This was really, really exciting world for me. I could do really well there. Then I got some idea of the machine learning world also. So I went to machine learning Reply within the Reply group. And eventually I saw potential in low code and AI powered software development. This is where then, again, I would say I was lucky that I was like chosen one of the people who could lead and form this company. And now here I am.
I want to kind of go back just a little bit because it's quite unusual. You come from a very small town. You've managed to be lucky enough to go on to have, I guess, not only go to education, but when
hmm
you went, you performed and you achieved really well.
hmm hmm
You come from a business family. You are a tech guy, but appreciate you have business understanding. You're business smart and savvy, but how was that perceived? I guess small town guy, business family, moves to tech. What was that experience like?
hmm Yeah, so glad to share this as well with you or our audiences. Um, so I come, as we say, that I come from a business family, and everyone. So in India, usually the education goes after your 12th standard, like science, commerce, and arts. And people rate it in a way that science is, let's say, for the most intellectual people or the, let's say, more brainy people. Commerce is more for doing businesses and this kind of stuff. And those who it was perceived at that time, that those who could not do well, they were going into arts, reading social life, politics, and arts, this kind of thing. And this is where all of my family members, they studied commerce. So this is where my father always wanted that one of his sons studies the science stream, which is considered it to be the more brainy or, let's say, more intellectual ones. Mm.
Yeah.
And my big brother chose the previous one, so I had no other option to go for this
Now,
stream.
now, I mean, even more interesting to that is, so your brother didn't choose it, but your father can choose how bright you are, right? You must have been like goal setting from a very early age
Hmm. Hmm.
to achieve this. Like, do you even look back then? Do you look back now to then and be like, yeah, I was setting myself really high goals without even
Hmm.
realizing that I was doing it.
Yeah, I was always an ambitious kid, I would say. So I was never settling for something low. So I was always competing to be the best kid in the school in terms of social stuff or educational stuff or in terms of grades. That's one of the reason why it could come up. And I think one of the things which my father told me or taught me in the very young age was being curious and ask questions. I think that was one thing which I carry till now in my life, and it helps me every single day. That I am curious about stuff and I ask questions to myself, to others, and I talk to people. This is where I would say what I am today is just because of one single advice here.
No, that's good. And then I guess like speaking on like motivating yourself, setting yourself a high bar. You joined Reply, and within 5 years, you are co-founding a new brand. Like that's huge. I mean, particularly when you look at a company like Reply, like they're well, you'll know more than me. 16,000 employees, close.
Yeah, close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went through and you've managed to come through from students to like first job and employment to
Hmm.
you've obviously developed a lot of trust in you, shown a lot of skills to then come in with KI Reply. What was I want to ask about first off like the formation of KI Reply, like
Hmm.
what happened between moving from a manager and data reply to moving to machine learning reply to KI reply, like why and how did that happen?
Yeah, so I would say this is where I structured myself a bit. So the when I was really early in my career in data reply, my manager used to, let's say, I had a very good relationship with him. And again, due to this curiosity of things and talking to leaders, I was talking to him one day and he was saying, Ramakant, just see where you want to be in 5 years. Then look for people in LinkedIn, super easy to find, and see what they have done, what kind of qualities they have. And then try to strategize yourself step by step so that how you can reach there. This was one thing which he told me. So how I strategize is first I went to build my technical skills because this is where I was good at already. Mm. And I made a good foundation of that because without that, I was sure that I would land up nowhere. Once I did that super good, then I started looking into people management. I started looking into recruitment. I started talking to many people where how do they do it? What is their motivation? What do they like? What do they do not like? Because it's super easy to see success of others, but it's super difficult to find the empathy or put yourself into those people's position and see what kind of stress, what kind of problems they are going through. And I was more interested, let's say, in the problem part or the stress part, what they were doing. And I like this. So I
Yeah.
like building something new. I like helping people. When I was reading a lot on social media, I'm not a book reader. So I like to read small posts. And this is the thing which really triggered me was a leader is one who enables people, who bring people forward and not himself. Before that, I always had this mindset that okay, if I'm a leader, I'm, let's say, king. I command and people will do my stuff.
It's
Yes, honestly, I had
it's
this mindset coming from a small town.
yeah, it is really more the opposite, right? It's
Exactly.
it's it's if you're the leader and you're like the king is your client, right? It's your customer. If it's back in Egyptian times, your customer's got the whip, but they're slashing down, right? You as the leader, you're actually the person that gets in the way and takes the hits for your team.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's not glamorous, but it's when done right, it's extremely rewarding, and it's nice. But
Hmm.
it's good that like you've pointed out like after tech that leadership skills were important and that they're a very important part of growing a business, scaling a business. How or what was like your first interaction with being a leader? Like, how were you moved into that from, let's say, that very technical person?
Yeah, so I can remember actually here I would say I was super lucky. So I always wanted to do this. And this is one thing also I believe that if you want something or if you want to try something, then let others know about it. So I was super clear in letting my managers know about it that I want to try, I want to get into such positions. And there was a time when someone left the company and a position was vacant, and because I let my managers know that I want to come in there, so then they thought, okay, let's try. And I would give the whole credit to my manager at that time to give me this position to try. And I did it, I liked it, and I continued doing it more and more.
Yeah. Nice. So again, perfect question because of how you've answered it. No leadership experience. You've got a couple of reports. What do you what did you think you had to do versus what you actually had to do?
As I said, this was my initial idea that as a leader, I have to tell people, you do that, you do that, you do that, and I just said. So this was just my idea, but it's totally opposite, as you said. So what I learned that you have to, let's say, bring people forward. You have to support people. You have to first find. So there are different ways or areas where we can talk about, but when we talk about people management, let's say, so first of all, you have to understand what people want. Like as I let my manager know that what I want, then try to make it possible for them. Try to bring them direction based on your experience. And you cannot bring somewhere to some place, but you can show them the path. They are the one who either choose or not to choose to do that. Mm. And this is what I learned a lot, that I have to, let's say, bring my knowledge, bring it to the society, bring it to others, help them, and don't think about what I am getting in return or not. And this I try to do a lot. These days, I'm also trying to coach a lot of students as well who are still in the school, that what they can do, what things are available for them. And they are the one who they can choose for themselves. But I'm doing my part for the society or to people that I bring my wisdom to them.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, I do, and I firmly believe as well, there has to be a big level of, you can call it will or want from people in your team. I mean, it's incredible. It's like the one thing that if you were to say, if I could pick people to have, it's the will or the want, right? You would take them with 90% less skill if you know they're going to listen to you, if you know they're going to be trustworthy, honorable, authentic, live by the values, buy into you. Like these are things that you can never do, but these are, I guess, like the morals we try to instill into our people as leaders, right? And
Hmm.
it's really hard. There's parts of that that come down to communication, goal setting, expectation management.
Hmm.
And the reason why I want to say that is I want to talk about your exposure coming into performance management, but I believe performance management is so closely related to communication that we
Hmm.
have to talk about communication first. So
Hmm.
you've got your team, you've inherited a team, or you've built up a team. How do you start talking to them about big hairy goals that we need to achieve X, Y, Z?
Hmm.
How do you start to get them to buy into you, to believe in you, to start thinking, yeah, do you know what, Ramakant, he's a good guy. I'll work hard for him.
Yeah, so I think this is where we have to earn the trust of the people. Mm. So, first of all, I would say you have to show it to people that you can do something. You have, so first of all, you can deliver. This is what you people have to understand. Once they understand this, then you have to bring your vision and your thought process into their mind. This is where I think is a super important role of me being a co-founder at Key Reply, is to bring the vision of accelerated software development to everyone's mind. And once we are successful in doing that, then we don't need to do anything. Then people just do it. Mm. So first of all, I would say we should deliver, then we should bring our vision to people, and then it should reflect also in our actions. I cannot say that, hey, you should do this fast, but taking 2 hours just to do it, right? So more pressure on me to bring it, to show it, and then people just do it automatically.
Yeah, it's gotta be large levels of accountability.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
which this is where I was coming into on the performance management piece, right? And the
Mm-hmm,
communication piece. It's sometimes hard to let people know what you're accountable for,
mm-hmm,
and it's also hard for them to let them know what they're accountable for,
mm-hmm,
particularly as new leaders, right? We don't have a process that works. Sometimes we don't even know that a process is important. And you
mm-hmm.
just look back after struggling for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, you're like, it's like, how did it work so well for me when I was in other businesses? And then you realize, there was a process in place that every
Mm-hmm.
time we were delivering software, every time that we were doing a release or shipping software, this is what we've done, and it was the exact same thing every time. So
Mm-hmm.
again, communication, I believe, process slots in there
Mm-hmm.
also before, and then the sort of management around that. Um, if we talk, you talked about building trust.
Mm-hmm.
What's not to say you've a go-to, but how do you look to engage your team to get them to trust you, for you to trust them, or even let them know that you trust them, which is as important.
Yeah, as I told previously also, so that first of all you have to show it. So don't expect first that people will give it to you. First you give. I think this is the first thing we have to do it. So to bring trust, first of all I have to have integrity, consistency. These things are super important. If I'm saying something, I have to stick to it. So if I say something today, something else tomorrow, then people are not going to trust me. So as part of communication as well, so we have to first of all have integrity and sticking to what we say. But then again, as I said, delivering or doing it or showing it to the people is super important. Then expecting them to do for us. Hmm? Um, if I cannot execute what I have told or promised people, then they will never trust me. Hmm?
Yeah,
If I see some reason why it may not happen, then I think it's my role also to communicate it properly to people. Hmm? I am always an open communication person. If I see there are some, let's say, danger or some, let's say, red flags in committing to what we have talked about, then I bring it on top, onto the table, talk man to man, or man to women, let's say, and then sort it out there, so that the other person also understands if something is going wrong, something is going good, so that he or she gets a chance to fix it in time.
you know, I believe giving trust is great, but where I was trying to even get a little bit more on is, inexperienced leaders, like
Mm-hmm,
I've done it before. We said, I want you to do this task. Today's Friday. I want you to have this done by next
mm-hmm,
Friday. Here's the start. Here's the finish line.
mm-hmm,
That's it. Unfortunately, I mean, we're all guilty of it, right? Every leader has done that at some point. Bad expectation setting, bad goal setting. I mean, just giving a finish line, unless you know someone has done that before,
mm-hmm,
or there's a process for them to follow to get to where they want to be,
mm-hmm,
ultimately, we're giving them trust, but we're also setting them up for failure.
mm-hmm,
And I mean that in the best way possible. Like, we want them to grow, we want them to learn. Yeah, I mean, sure, there's a chance they'll come out and they'll completely prove us wrong, and they'll achieve it. They'll come up with, I guess, and I know there's elements of where this is where innovation is made, right? They get to the finish line faster, cheaper, in a way that's just better than the way it was originally done.
mm-hmm.
But I do also think there's almost an element of too much risk there. And
Yes.
if it's done wrong, that
Mm-hmm,
trust is already going to be broken down. I've given you this project. They don't feel fulfilled. They're like, oh, I don't know. And then they start almost resent if you give them
mm-hmm,
an extra task.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, is there a happy balance there?
So one strategy which I try to follow, or actually I learned it the hard way, I would say. So when I was sometimes fail to do it, as you said, like people sometimes fail to do the task what they have done, and you get blamed for it. So that's not a good feeling. So first of all, you got a challenging task and you could not do it, and you got blamed for it. So sometimes you think it's unfair. But just imagine the situation when your manager says, no, it's not it's his fault. He takes all the pain or the, let's say, backslash of this problem on himself and say, no, it's okay. We did some mistake. Perfectly fine. Let's try to work on a way how we can make it better, how we can do it in a better way for future. So giving them the person again similar responsibility, but here checking a bit. Are you feeling comfortable? Are you not feeling comfortable? Do you need some help in the beginning or not? If this happens, let's say again, I would still not blame the person, but next time I would try to be more cautious and try to even check in between. Can I do something for you? So this is where I think when you show your confidence on people, people deliver definitely. Mm. If they're too much worked, yes, we should do something to reduce that. If they don't know it, then we should provide them some training or some support so that they can get there. Mm. So we have to also understand why this didn't work or why the task or anything didn't happen,
Nice.
apart from just the result.
I mean, it's so. This is the really interesting thing about this. You have this very clear process of how to do
Hmm.
this in your mind. You're experienced with it. You're doing it. So let's say tomorrow you want to hire the next Ramakant to do the same thing again. They've not got the ability.
Hmm.
You want to clone your playbook, right? You want them to say, right, this is how I let people know I care for them.
Hmm.
I recommend you use it too.
Hmm.
The challenge is look, KI could get quite big. You'll at some point you'll not have visibility over a leader who's going to come in and going to be doing this. Do you have a playbook that everyone in the business could refer back to say, oh, I wanna start giving my team more responsibility. I wanna start, letting them I wanna create a safe learning environment, but instead of just saying, here's here, expecting them to know how to do the job, bring me a finished piece of software by next Friday. No in
Hmm.
between. Is the Ramakant playbook available to other people in the reply group, right? Because it sounds good. It sounds exactly like how I like to do things and how I want things done. But I've
Hmm.
also realized I've been very bad at replicating my work and not making what works for me accessible for other people.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I think we should accept that every individual is different. So we cannot expect someone to do exactly like how I do. And it's also not true, or I would not say, I cannot say that I am doing the best. Probably someone comes and does better than me as well. Mm.
That's what we
So
want.
Exactly. But this is where what I try. I don't have any answer for your question exactly, I would say. I don't know. I have not seen that day when key reply will be so big that I don't have the visibility on what others are doing so much. But what I try to bring in my culture or my company is we build a culture of giving responsibility. We build a culture of not blaming people. We bring a culture of some things, and when we do this with X, it's very highly that X will also learn and do with Y or some others. Hmm?
Yeah.
Um, I would not want to control people that, yeah, I did it this way, you should do it this way. No, people can come up with much, much better ways. But if things are not working, then we need to talk.
Yeah.
Then we need to find some way how we have to make it work. Because for me, the end business goal, the happiness of people, the empowerment of people is more important than how we do it, let's say. That should be individualized. And when I was a developer or pure developer as well, this was something I used to say that there are some freedom of rights, or let's say some rights I give it to developers. I don't want to say developer you do that or that. So we know this, and in between you decide. It's your freedom, your like how do I say?
Innovation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I just can't think of the exact fitting word. But I mean, it's like we'd anticipated to talk about like how you do like L&D and upskill your engineers, and I
Hmm.
believe like this is, I don't know if you use the term, but it's called like creating a safe learning environment. So
Hmm.
I mean, classrooms are great, you know, university is great, but if you never put your code to production or you never put up something in for review,
Yes.
you'll ultimately never know if it works and where you can get better, where you can fail. And it was only today I was writing on LinkedIn. I said, don't be afraid to create a culture for people to fail in
Hmm.
if it's safe. Be afraid to create a culture that makes failure unacceptable. And unfortunately, if you think of like the business world or the tech world, probably like what, particularly in sales and in other blue collar jobs, it was a case of not hitting your number. You're actually pushed out the door like that
Yeah.
Friday, right?
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Hmm.
And we want to move completely away from that and make sure that it's like people aren't going to learn
Hmm.
in fear. It's not going to work. Um, did you purposely create this sort of self-learning, safe learning environment?
So first of all, let's say, as I said before, I'm a curious person and I like to learn. I keep on learning. My colleagues always make joke on me that I have, let's say, probably the highest number of certifications in tools within Reply Group. This is where we,
Do you even know how many?
yeah, like I stopped doing since 2 years, and before that I was having around 13 certifications.
Right.
So I did almost three or four every year, apart from a full-time job. Mm.
Good. Very curious.
Um, so we incentivize people in learning. So, for example, because sometimes money also works, so we have some incentives for people that if you learn this thing, do certifications, then you get certain amount of money. Let's say that's one thing. Second thing, which I didn't get, but I always lacked. So I always also try to learn from my experiences. So sometimes I did certifications, but then I never got to work on those things so that I could learn it. So now what I try to bring in is if you learn something, then you have to work on it as well. So if let's say we are consultancy, I cannot guarantee that you will definitely get a project on that or not. But what I try to do is give them some scope where they can build their own something on the topic what they've learned so that they can use it and it stays in their brain, not only on paper.
Yeah.
So this is how I try to, let's say, bring the learning culture into the company and also upskilling our people.
Good philosophy. Really, really like that. If we talk about now, like, you know, the last couple of years then as well, how they've changed. So you've transformed from engineer into manager, into business leader, into co-founder. Was there anything that surprised you in terms of, you know, like a skill that's really important that you just completely underestimate, or it just never crosses your desk, right? It does because you've
Mhm.
come from a tech background.
Yeah, I would come up with only one name, networking.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we know it. So this is super interesting what I found in myself and also in people. So there are many things when you go to social media, when you go to LinkedIn, or when you read books. There are a few things which you always see, listen, read, but you never follow them. So I have always learned that networking is important. Networking is important. If you see my LinkedIn connections, I have more than 2,000, which is also good. But is it really my network? No, because I'm not communicating with them. I'm not interacting with them. And network comes with interactions, or when you give to your network something. So this comes with exchanges, and which I was not building. I was just building the fake social media network. And when I grew into this position, I really, really work strongly in building network, talking to people, talking to leaders. So this is also something which I would actually tell everyone. Don't hesitate to talk to leaders. So everyone is super nice out in the world. You go ask them a question, they would be super happy to respond to you. We hesitate to take the first step and go and talk to them. And this is where we do, I would say, the first mistake. After talking to these leaders, you will understand so many things. Your perspective of seeing things will change totally,
I
definitely.
get. I guess it's kind of like the analogy, right? they say the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door. Uh, and it's kind of like when you want to hear from people that are better than you. I mean, I've had so many calls with people that host podcasts, ran events, ran recruitment businesses, and I just cold reached out to them on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, I like what you do.
Yeah.
Can I ask you some questions? Do you have 10, 15 minutes? If they're in your town, offer to buy them lunch, buy a coffee. Who's going to say no to a free lunch or coffee? You come in, you have your stuff. Which this takes us up to the next point, Ramakant. And you've openly told me that you've got coaches and you've used them in ways to upskill yourself. Which, do you know what? I don't think enough people actively do it. Right? You know, a lot of people have coaches or say they'll have coaches, and they're like, oh, it's a friend, it's a family member. It's someone that I have to interact with through my VC, through my business, or they're already in your network. I don't believe they are dedicated coaches to you, but I believe having a dedicated coach is like unmatched in terms of what you would get out of it. Talk to me about your experience with it.
I would say I have not been so lucky that I had a dedicated coach, let's say from the beginning of my career. I would say I had no coaches. And this is also when I try to coach also people, sometimes I try to do actively, but this doesn't work. So it works from the other way around. When the person who wants to be coached, when he or she is looking for an answer and looking for people, and when people coach them, then they get it. If I go and tell you 5 things which you should do, let's say, to have an amazing future in 5 years, people don't take it. They just take it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then it's gone. I have looked for coaches, or sorry, coming back to your question, I have several coaches in between. Definitely, I was lucky there. As I said, one of my managers in my previous company, he told me about see yourself in 5 years, plan it, go for it. Whenever I had any doubts or something, I was going to him, talking to him. There were also various other people where I found them in between of my career or family life where I talked with them multiple times. But again, I would say there cannot be, let's say, from my experience, one size doesn't fit all. So
Yeah.
there cannot be one coach who can coach you in all stages of your career, in all phases of your life, let's say. But you should constantly look for coaches who can coach you because that's the easiest way, right? Someone has already learned by failing. You just take their knowledge, use it.
It's a
Why do you
safe
want to
it's a
fail?
safe place. It's interesting, and you mentioned again that the guy from Reply that said, "Where do you want to be in 5 years?" So you've obviously been from a very young age, very driven, very motivated by having your goal at that time was education. I want to be the tech guy. I want to do my father proud. Did you reset goals since you left university, or was kind of your manager at Reply saying for the first time, where do you want to be in 5 years? Was that like a reset of younger you into kind of saying, yeah, it would work for you before, let's go again?
That's a difficult question. Yes and no, both, I would say. So, I really wanted to do people management. I really wanted to uh, take care of projects, take care of people, bringing things to forward. But I never actually thought of being in the situation where I am now, where I would lead actually a company, where I would form something from scratch. And
Yeah.
this thing actually sometimes circumstances. So you are in a situation, you got some chance. If you took it, you are there. If you don't take it, you are somewhere else. So things definitely change with time. But my ultimate goal of, let's say, leading a big team is kind of happening, but in a different way, let's say. Hmm?
Yeah. I mean, you've achieved some incredible stuff. You came to Germany as an expat, and now you're spinning out a brand within one of Germany's largest tech consultancies, which I mean, there's probably, and no offense to anyone that's working in Reply for 15 years, but there are people that were in Reply 15 years that haven't got to achieve that, right? And there's reasons why it's you. Um,
So I would say here, did you finish your question or do you
no,
want to
no,
ask?
that's it. Yeah,
Okay,
there's reasons why
okay.
it's you. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot say if there are definite reasons for that. Could be, or I would say I was lucky. Hmm. So definitely I was working towards it. Hmm. I think I was at the right time at the right place. Hmm. And this is what brought me here.
So
Otherwise, I would not say I'm having some super amazing skills or something. I still have to learn a lot. Every day is difficult.
where are you now currently looking into upskilling yourself?
So my next thing is, as I said, networking. So I never invested a lot in building a real network where people know you, you talk to people, interact with people. This is where I'm working, let's say, every day there. I also have a feeling that selling is a very good or very important skill everyone should have. And this is where I'm trying or pushing myself, looking for even mentors, looking for some trainings, courses where I can learn. As you said previously, there should be some process. There has to be some way which is already defined by people, which works the best. I don't know this yet, and this is where I want to learn this. And my experience also says that it saves like 90% of your effort already by knowing the standard process.
Yeah.
The rest is your work, your effort, your creativity, what you can bring in.
I do, and I hate to say it because it goes against creativity, is that you can create a process for everything. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you can create a process for everything that will work and it will stay consistent. And if it's sales, marketing, software development, it will stay consistent. And if it achieves results in month one, two, three, chances are it will achieve results for the rest of its time, right? That's just how it is.
Yeah.
There are elements of it where I do believe the process can be veered from to allow for innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I believe that will come down to the person, their experience, and having to do it long enough to actually get it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think people should be, if they're taking on sales for the first time. I mean, and I do unfortunately hear people say it. It's like every time they go on a sales call, they're winging it because they're not salespeople, right? And then I mean that's tough. I'd never go onto a sales call and not know what I'm going to say for the first 2 minutes. I know what I'll
Mm-hmm.
say for the first 2 minutes. I know what I'll say for the last 2 minutes. The rest is
Goodbye.
the rest is innovation, right? But it's just things like that where people wouldn't even think about it. They go on, they'd introduce themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Some people even forget to say the reason why they're calling. There's different techniques and psychology around openings for sales. You literally have to choose one because
Mm-hmm.
it's not a case of I'm just going to see how this call goes. Then very quickly, if you're a cold calling salesperson, you're quickly hoping that the person on the other end doesn't answer.
Mm-hmm.
But you will do sales for 2 hours and hope they don't answer because you're not equipped with a process.
So, what would be your question there?
I was just going to say, like you said, you were looking to upskill yourself in sales, upskill yourself in networking. That's just where I feel process is kind of like when you've got the skills, you need to make a process to make sure it is. I'm going to use the word scalable, but I also mean like scalable, repeatable,
Mm-hmm.
and also not only repeatable by you. As I said, like if you were to find the bug and you didn't have a process to say, yeah, we report the bug on Jira and then it goes through the bug process. If the process was you find the bug and you do what you want with it, right? And you say, oh, I found it, not reporting that. This is too much work. It's ready to fall down. So that's what I mean. The
Mm-hmm.
process is important.
Yeah. So I would say, so I agree with you. And this is where I would want to bring in my previous statement, what I said. So someone can show me the direction, someone can show me the vision, but how I do it is on me. The execution lies on me. Mm. And this is what I again learned from my this manager at Reply is bring your uniqueness to everything what you do. So I've stated this actually many times to people, and I would state it here as well. Why I stayed in reply for so long was as soon as he opened the door for my interview call, he folded his hands, bent down, and said namaste to me. And this is where I felt so much valued. This was his unique culture or unique style, let's say. He was doing it for everyone, not for me only. Mm. And this is where I think everyone has to find their uniqueness. You can bring in your culture as well, something there, some special touch. And as you said, sometimes process can be there, work, not work. Then you have to make your process on top of this process, taking this as a best baseline. Mm. Many times it may not work, then learn from it, modify it, and then keep the same base process because the base process will work definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree. Ready for some quick fire questions?
Oh, okay.
Your favorite piece of content, whether it be blogs, books, podcasts, movies, that you would recommend to other leaders?
I'm not a good book reader, so I read only few of them, but definitely I read Simon Sinek in LinkedIn, so he posts a lot of things there. I also follow, so I don't have very specific names, but there is generative AI group in LinkedIn which I follow definitely. So your podcast I will follow from now on, and the only thing which I would always say people is to have a observation. So keep up your observation. Look for things which you like, which is giving you more insights to things, and then follow it.
Second question. What would you consider to be your biggest success as a leader?
So I would say you have already mentioned this. So coming from a very small town to a big city in India, then coming to Germany, and then landing up in a position where I'm leading a company or making a brand within a big group like Reply is already a big success for me. So being in this position is already feels success to me.
I'll cap it off with my last one. What are your non-negotiables when it comes to leadership? And they can be about how you set up yourself or how you set up your team and colleagues.
Yeah, so I would say first of all, empowerment of people. So empowering people is super important. That is not negotiable. Integrity is, as I said, what you say, what you do you should have integrity there. That's where people will trust you. And leadership, I think, it comes up also with a wide variety of perspective and empathy. So I would try to combine these two. Is we should understand what others are, who they are. Every individual is different. We have to understand or put ourselves in their shoes and to understand them first, then before saying or doing anything, and also understand or bring this culture, or let's say, yeah, every individual is different. So I cannot say if X works with Anthony, then Y should also, or X should work with Y also. That's
Yeah.
not possible. So we have to understand that. We have to take this in account and be empathetic to others.
Excellent. Ramakant, that's us for time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Same here.
Thank
Same
you,
here.
and I really look forward to following your journey at KR Reply. Very proud of your achievements, and look, great to have you. And hopefully we can come back and hear the success story in a couple of years' time.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope so that I will be in a situation where I can guide even more people, bring in my vision and my ideas to others, help them achieve what I have achieved, or maybe more than what I've achieved. Uh, I would look forward to that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Then
That concludes another enlightening episode of the Leadership Labs podcast. If you found today's episode thought-provoking and informative, be sure to subscribe to the Leadership Labs on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube. Thank you once again for joining us on this journey through the Leadership Labs. Until next time.